Tragedy had struck the Winshaws twice before, but never on such a terrible scale. The first of these incidents takes us back to the night of November the 30th, 1942, when Godfrey Winshaw, then only in his 33rd year, was shot down by German anti-aircraft fire as he flew a top-secret mission over Berlin. The news, which was relayed to Winshaw Towers in the early hours of the morning, was enough to drive his elder sister Tabitha clean out of her wits, where she remains to this day. Such was the violence of her distraction, in fact, that it was deemed impossible for her even to attend the memorial service which was held in her brother's honour. It is a curious irony that this same Tabitha Winshaw, today aged 81, and no more in possession of her thinking faculties than she has been for the last 45 years, should be the patron and sponsor of the book which you, my friendly readers, now hold in your hands. The task of writing with any objectivity about her condition becomes somewhat problematic. Yet the facts must be stated. And the facts are these: that from the very moment she heard of Godfrey's tragic demise, Tabitha has been in the grip of a grotesque delusion. In a word, it has been her belief, if such it can be called, that he was not brought down by German gunfire at all, but that the killing was the work of his own brother, Lawrence. I have no wish to dwell unnecessarily on the pitiful infirmities which fate has chosen to visit upon a poor and weak-minded woman, but this matter must be explained insofar as it has a material bearing on the subsequent history of the Winshaw family, and it must, therefore, be put into some sort of context. I shall at least endeavour to be brief. The reader should know, then, that Tabitha was 36 years old when Godfrey died, and that she was still living the life of a spinster, never having shown the slightest inclination towards matrimony. In this regard, it had already been noticed by several members of her family that her attitude towards the male sex was characterized at best by indifference and at worst by aversion. The lack of interest with which she received the approaches of her occasional suitors was matched only by her passionate attachment and devotion to Godfrey, who was, as the few reports and surviving photographs testify, by far the gayest, most handsome, most dynamic, and generally prepossessing of the 5 brothers and sisters. Knowing the strength of Tabitha's feelings, the family had fallen prey to a certain anxiety when Godfrey announced his engagement in the summer of 1940. But in place of the violent jealousy which some had feared, a warm and respectful friendship grew up between sister and prospective sister-in-law, and the marriage of Godfrey Winshaw to Mildred, née Ashby, passed off most successfully in December of that year. Instead, Tabitha continued to reserve the sharpest edge of her animosity for her eldest brother Lawrence. The origins of the ill feeling which subsisted between these unhappy siblings are not easy to trace. Most probably they had to do with temperamental differences. Like his father Matthew, Lawrence was a reserved and sometimes impatient man, who pursued his extensive national and international business interests with a single-minded determination which many construed as ruthlessness. That realm of feminine softness and delicate feeling in which Tabitha moved was thoroughly alien to him. He considered her flighty, oversensitive, neurotic, and, in a turn of phrase which can now be seen as sadly prophetic, a bit soft in the head. Nor, it has to be admitted, was he entirely alone in this view. In short, they did their best to keep out of each other's way, and the wisdom of this policy can be judged from the appalling events which followed upon Godfrey's death. Immediately before setting off on his fatal mission, Godfrey had been enjoying a few days' rest in the tranquil atmosphere of Winshaw Towers. Mildred, of course, was with him. She was, at this stage, several months pregnant with their first and only child, a son, as it was to turn out, and it was presumably the prospect of seeing these, her favourite members of the family, which induced Tabitha to forsake the comfort of her own substantial residence and cross the threshold of her hated brother's home. Although Matthew Winshaw and his wife were still alive and in good health, they were by now effectively consigned to a set of chambers in a self-contained wing, and Lawrence had established himself as master of the house. It would be stretching a point, all the same, to say that he and his wife Beatrice made good hosts. Lawrence, as usual, was preoccupied with his business activities, which required him to spend long hours on the telephone in the privacy of his office, and even, on one occasion, to make an overnight trip to London, for which he departed without making any kind of apology or explanation to his guests.